The official Vintage Guitar Magazine 2025 price guide has partnered with 33 of the top guitar dealers in the industry to provide the most accurate values for thousands of models. This includes electric guitars, acoustic guitars, basses, amplifiers, effects, mandolins, and banjos. Whether your instrument is an investment or simply a piece you enjoy playing, it's always helpful to know what it's worth. If you're checking out a guitar at your local shop and want to know its value before making the purchase, this guide is your go-to source for all the details. Available in both print and digital editions, you can have the guide right at your fingertips no matter where you go.
Hello, and welcome to Buy That Guitar, presented by Vintage Guitar Magazine. I'm your host, Ram Tuli. This podcast is about the joy of guitar. That includes buying guitars, selling guitars, collecting guitars. We're talking vintage guitars, new guitars, used guitars, pre-war, flat tops, electric Spanish arch tops, custom shop guitars, limited edition guitars, basses, amps, effect pedals, lap steels, mandolins, banjo. If it has strings, we're going to talk about it. I spent most of my life studying the vintage guitar market. It's truly something I love and I'm passionate about. I can talk guitars all day, and I'm going to. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting and thrilling edition of Buy That Guitar. Today, I'm with the titan of the Telecaster, the one and only Redd Volkaert. Red, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, this is no lie. I am awed in your presence. I am a true fan. Every year at the Dallas International Guitar Festival, I'm that guy sitting right in front of you. My mouth is open. I'm staring at your right hand, or your left hand, I should say. And my wife, sometimes she's next to me. Sometimes she's hiding in the shadow, the shade.
Yeah.
Our last time you were out in the sun, it was like I got heat stroke, but I wasn't going to miss it.
Oh, yeah. It gets warm out there.
I actually changed my schedule. I used to always fly out on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
I missed the Telecaster showdown. And there's only two things I love. I love the All-Star Jams on Saturday night, and I love the Telecaster, Master of the Telecaster.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's early, but one time, I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago, where you were at the last act.
Right.
And they were literally, remember they were coming in and taking the chairs away while you guys were still on stage?
Yeah.
And and you guys wouldn't stop.
Yeah.
I think they even came and took our chairs away, and we're just standing there, But I refuse to leave on Sunday just because I don't want to miss the Master of the Telecaster. That, to me, is the highlight of that show.
Yeah, it's a fun thing to do. And, that last time where we went late, they put us on late, like 45 minutes late. And the sound guys were riding my ass like, well, how long is this going to take? And I'm like, what do you mean? Well, how long is this going to take? We're supposed to be done here at 6 o'clock and we got to start tearing down and all of that. And I'm like, I realize you guys don't give a shit. You've been here all weekend, but these guys were all scheduled to play, and they're all supposed to get 3 guys up with me, and we play 3 songs each. Each person. Oh man, that's going to take forever. The sound guys are saying that, and I'm like, well, okay, we'll do 2 songs. Oh my God, that's still way too long. Can you cut it down to 1 song? We got to get going. I'm like, man, you guys sound like waitresses.
Yeah. When they said they're going to start tearing down at 6, they started tearing down at 6. They're coming and taking the barricades down.
Oh yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't wheel the amps off the stage. And I want to give a special shout out to our friend Barney Roach for introducing us.
You bet.
He knew that I was a super fan of yours. I was telling Barney, I was like, I really want to talk to Red. I really want to do a podcast with him.
Yeah.
And he made it happen. He says, well, here's his number. He sent you a picture of me or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm eternally grateful. Barney's like the guy that sets up a lot of my things because I'm too shy to ever go up to anybody and talk to him. So, but if he's there, he'll push me right to the front there. And
he's awesome. I love him. He's a great fella and has been for a long time.
I've watched every interview you've done, and it's pretty funny.
You poor bastard.
Because to me, it's like, well, if I'm going to interview Redd Volkaert, I have to really know what everybody asks him. And everybody always asks you the same question. They always start off with, well, how old were you when you started playing guitar, Redd?
Right.
And you always say, well, I was 13. And one guy, you go, well, I was 13. I was in prison then.
Right.
And then he goes right to the next question. It's like it just kind of went over his head, like he didn't realize you were joking. Yeah. So for the record, you weren't in prison when you were 13, right?
No.
But I think my favorite one, of course, is the Zach Childs, because he's a fellow Telecaster master as well. And he's also a VG magazine aficionado. He's up there. I'm like maybe number 50 on the totem pole. He's like number 5 or 6, right?
I doubt that. He's a real cool guy, and I love him because he loves Telecasters and always has.
What I did was I was watching that Zach Childs interview with you. There's this thing called the 10,000 hour rule. When I was coaching baseball, we were always telling our kids, you need 10,000 hours. This concept.
Oh, right.
I think
Yeah.
it was in a Malcolm Gladwell book called Outliers, and they suggested that achieving mastery in any complex skill or field typically requires about 10,000 hours of deliberate practice.
Yeah, that's what they say.
And it's just that, you basically practice, practice, practice. So I went through the Zach Child interview and I added up how many hours that you are credited with. This is a conservative thing. Basically you start at age 13 to about 1985. You're playing in clubs in Canada, and then you come down to Los Angeles in about 1986.
Well, I started. I was probably first road gig was in 1977. Traveling around with they were called the Canadian Sweethearts. It was a guy and his wife, a fellow named Bob Reagan, who played the three-neck Mosrite, and his claim to the world was he was the fastest guitar player in the world, and they were called the Canadian Sweethearts, and she had a big song in the late 50s called the French Song, and it was all in French, and it was a really big hit in Canada. Anyway, I was playing with them. I guess I was probably 15 years old, and that was my first big road travel thing, and I went steady from then on.
Was that known as the Antlers tours, where you go into the Elks Club and the Moose Club?
Yeah. all the highlights, high spots.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so I'll get back to this. I calculated the number using my super secret nuclear engineering background. I calculated how many estimated hours that you have played guitar. This is just a conservative estimate. You have between 70 and 75,000 hours of Telecaster time. So if it takes 10,000 hours to master something, you are above and beyond a master of the Telecaster.
Yeah, I'm still trying to find it. Still looking for the one.
Yeah, and you're not even a titan of the You're now on Mount Olympus. I don't think anybody's amassed 75,000 hours on a guitar.
Oh, I'm sure most guys have.
Well, that generation really did play. You played 6 nights a week, 7 nights a week, 3 gigs a day. That's, for me, that'd be a dream come true. Because nobody will have me anywhere.
Well, that's the old days when the nightclubs, you played 5 hours a night in a nightclub, and even afternoon shifts were 5 hours in the afternoon. You'd play 2 to 7, and then you'd do 9 to 2. And that was just normal. You want to work, that's what you got to do,
Like when you got to LA, was that when you kind of started getting focused on country?
No, I played in country bands up in Canada that, played regular old honky-tonk kind of Ray Price and, Merle Haggard and Buck Owens and that kind of just barroom sort of dancing country music sort of stuff. I grew up playing that stuff. But as a little kid, my brother's a year older, so he was a drummer, so he was a rock guy, so he had records and stuff that, before I did them. He had a paper route, so he could buy records, and all of his records were the rock stuff of the day when we were kids. So of course I'd listen to his stuff and sit with a guitar and try and figure it out and try and be a rock guy as well and a blues guy. And then my first gigs were doing the Antler tours and weekend bands playing old country music. We were doing, Jim Reeves and Hank Williams and that kind of stuff. So I started out doing that stuff, playing on the weekends, but during the week and in school and, in my room, I was wanting to be a rock god like everybody else, but I had my little stash of country records on the bottom so my buddies couldn't see it. They never rifle through the stack that low to go to the bottom and find the country records,
In the Zach Childs interview, you really get into depth when you start playing with Don Kelly at the Stagecoach Lounge in Nashville.
Yeah, that was a 6 nights with him, and then the off night I wound up getting that gig too and just doing that regular Sunday night thing as well. So 7 nights a week, 5 hours a night back then.
And would you say that's where you really refined your chops? Like, were you actually thinking about doing a different type of solo every time you took a solo?
No, I was doing that way before that. I'd like to think I was anyway. As a teenager, for some reason, maybe it was my personality, but I wound up playing in a lot of trios, a bass player that sang and a drummer that sang, and I didn't sing at all, and I was the guitar player. So I started out doing that at probably 16 or 17, and I just got tired of playing my same one little solo over everything on all the songs in different keys. And I don't know what it was. I guess back in the old days, I carried around an extra suitcase full of cassette tapes of all my, Chet Atkins stuff and Jerry Reed and just everything. I had all kinds of, blues sections and rock section. And during the day, I'd sit in my room and woodshed with those cassette tapes. So for some reason, at some point, at probably 17 maybe, it hit me while I'm playing. I'm thinking, man, I'm playing the same shit on every solo or the same kind of thing. I should do something different. So I got to thinking about it, listening to all my tapes. I thought, okay, yeah, we're playing a Buck Owens song, but what would Grady Martin play for a solo if he was on this gig? Then I would think like that. Okay, I know 3 Grady Martin licks. I'll try and make up a solo along that line. And then they'd say, "Oh, that's great. Go again. Take another solo." I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm already out of stuff to play, but what would Chet Atkins do if he played on a Buck Owens song?" And I'd play a little Buck Owensy kind of sounding, probably pretty crappy solo, But that's kind of what got me interested in trying to think that way, where I did all the playing. And I remember back then, if I got to go watch somebody else play, I would see him play, and if a guy it's like me, played the same stuff all the time, 20 minutes of that, I've had enough. I'm ready to go see somebody else play, And so by doing that, I thought, yeah, I know when I go watch somebody, if they break it up and make different kinds of solos, then it's more fun to listen to because you're hearing all the things that they're thinking of while they're playing. Mistakes or not, that doesn't matter. At least they're trying. And so I started thinking that way, thinking, okay, I get 3 solos in this song. I'll play like a steel. One would be like a pedal steel, sort of a cheap wannabe steel solo. And then the other one would be the melody. And then the third one, well, I might play it a little bluesier or a little swingier and do it that way. And then once I got that kind of rolling pretty good, then I would cut them in half and say, okay, I get 3 solos. That means 6 half solos. So I would play half a solo, like the melody. The second solo, second half, I would do it in double stops. Maybe the second solo, the first half, I would do a steel licks. And then the second half of that, I might do something was a little chordy, 3-note chords or something a little jazzier or swingier. And each solo, it seemed like, listening to all my tapes and records, when guys were playing a lot of picking on the records, they would start out with the melody, and the more solos they got, the wilder they'd get. So I started tailoring my own little things that I made up or come up with. I would start simple with the melody and single note, that kind of thing, and kind of, as a rule, tip your hat to the songwriter and the song and the melody, and let everybody know that you know the song, that you're not just bullshitting your way through it and just playing a bunch of hot shit you tried to figure out in the music store, So anyway, I had to do that and try and make my solos count and get busier and more hectic toward the end, just to keep people's interest as well as my
That's
own.
why I love that, the masters of the Telecaster, just because no 2 people are going to solo the same, because it's almost like everybody's different. And it's almost like the all-star jams too.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
The way Jimmy Wallace puts them together. It's like you're not going to do every solo is different. Everybody has to think about doing something. And with the Telecaster, you have more power in your 5, 6 notes.
Oh sure.
Let's say you're hired to do session work, right? And you show up and you don't really, and they tell you that, okay, I want you to play the solos on something. Do they give you, what do they hand you? Like a Nashville notation?
Well, in Nashville, they would give you a number
And
chart.
so it's up to you to figure out what
Yeah, if it's up to you to play what you want or what they want in the solo. But you have to follow the chord pattern, and that's on the chart.
Right.
They would have, like it would say 1 for 8 bars and then 4 for 2 bars, or that kind of thing, written down, and they're using the numbers instead of going C, F, and G.
So let's say you're told that the singer is going to sing in the key of A. You would know then.
Yeah.
Like what's like in your head? What are you thinking right there? Are you thinking A pentatonic, or are you thinking I'm going to play the relative, which is like, I guess, F sharp?
Well, I assess if I'm going to record, I assess the thing before I go in there, even if I can, or as I'm walking in. Here's a guy with a cowboy hat, major scale.
Hmm.
I'm not looking at it like a guy coming in there with dreadlocks is going to be a different type of music
Yeah.
than the guy in the cowboy hat or the guy with the go to hell flat cap. It's a
Hmm.
different people, and of course you listen to the music before you start playing, or you listen to the demo. The guy might sit there with acoustic guitar and do his song, and then you go, okay, it kind of sounds like this style, and he's got 5 tunes, and they all fit in this genre. Oh, okay, well then I'll treat it like that. you
To
know
be a good country player, like for me, I can only play that pentatonic scale because I'm a blues guy. I can fake country by going down to the relative, 4 frets down and playing that same pentatonic, but that's the only way I know how to sound country-ish.
Well, I think that something like that works, and if it works for you, then hell, that's great. That's awesome. But there's
Hmm.
several ways to skin a raccoon. I mean, you start at the feet or the neck or the back. Uh, so the same applies with the guitar. How many A notes are on a guitar? There's a pile of them. So you could technically look at the thing, or if you talk to another player and say, okay, how many things can you do in A? And they go, well, I know a little bit of stuff here, a little bit there, a little bit there. So all of a sudden you realize, oh, they've got 3 positions to play A stuff out of. Not A minor, not A pentatonic, and just A things.
Hmm.
And that should get you going and thinking about that. But I found just through my experience that if I'm playing with old school kind of country people, and a lot of pop people even, that the major scale is probably the biggest influence in that kind of music.
Hmm.
So if you pick a Bing Crosby song or a Merle Haggard song or a Frank Sinatra song or any of that kind of a Steve Miller song, whatever. When they sing the melody and you play the melody on the guitar, you'll find out that 99% of that is done in the major scale.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Now, a
Yeah.
blues guy, he's going to sing everything that's in the pentatonic scale. So if you hear a fella singing and you hear real major sounding
Right.
stuff, like there's no blue notes, he's not sneaking the fourth note of the scale up to the fifth and bending it, or he's the minor third. It's like, well, is it a real blunt minor third, or is it kind of bending it up just a tad so it's almost a major? That's kind of a blue approach or a bluesy approach to you stay in major, but you're kind of not by making it a minor and bending it up to the major. So there's a bunch of little tricks I think a guy can learn
Hmm.
using what you have to help you along to differentiate, say, between something you say, well, this guy sounds a little more country sounding, so what could I do that's a little more country sounding? Well, I would say to all my students, rule number one, every Hank Williams song and Elvis song that's ever been written and sung, if you can play that melody to that song on a major scale.
Hmm.
So the same in the blues setting. If you're playing a BB King or an Albert King or any King song, uh, it's going to be basically out of the pentatonic scale.
Right.
So you apply your playing behind that guy to fit that flavor, that genre, or whatever you want to call it.
Like on the way in here this morning, I was coming in, I was listening to your Tellywhacker album because I love that album.
Yep.
And there is an album on there called "It's a Minor Thing."
Thank you.
And that song, and I thought that was the most gut wrenching
Yep.
Telecaster blues song. I think it was just like I couldn't the emotion you're getting out of that Telecaster playing that "It's a Minor Thing." Roy Buchanan never did anything that was to me that was that heart wrenching. And that's why I love your stuff because you can play whatever it is, happy, solid, country, blues, and that's what always impressed me. I'd love to be able to play country like you do, but I'm a blues guy.
Well, that's okay. There's no. I mean, you trying to. It seems like you're going. But I'm just a blues guy. Bullshit. You do what you
Hmm.
do, and you do it as good as you possibly can. And if that's all you got, fuck them. That's
That's
all
yeah,
you got.
and that's what you get.
You play your dead level best every time you pick a guitar up. And if somebody doesn't get that, well, you don't need to be on that gig. It's pretty simple, you know.
Yeah.
But you give them everything you got on every solo and every fill, and you try and back them up accordingly so that they sound as best that they can, and that you're not in their way while you're backing them up. And those are the things I think that get a guy a job more than just a guy being a hot rod. You know,
I want to say, like in 1997, your phone rings, and there's a guy on the phone who says, "Yeah, this is Merle Haggard," and you think it's your buddy calling you, fooling with you, right? And he's like, "No, I'm Merle Haggard, the singer." And
I said, Murph, you lying bastard.
and Merle's like, "No." So I guess you joined that band right away, right? He invites you out. I think that week you're out there playing with him,
Yeah.
right? And did he ask you to play like Royal Nichols?
No, I've loved that stuff since I was 10 years old, you know. So I studied it and worked on that stuff for probably from when I was 12 or 13 till today. I mean, I've been working on that and trying to learn their instrumentals. They had 5 instrumental albums, and I've had those all my life, and I sat with them. I still don't know them all the way through real good, but I know a whole bunch of stuff, and I've had the whole collection all my life, and and every bar band I've ever played in, that's been probably 3/4 of the music that the country bar bands have played. So I grew up playing that stuff. So in my mind, I was sort of ready for it, you know, in that way. And you know, even on my about my 3rd gig with Merle, you know, you're playing a gig all the time, a regular gig, and you just kind of look at the floor and you're playing, and you don't think nothing of it. And I was on about the 3rd night playing with him, and he starts singing, and then I play a little solo, and then he comes back in singing, and just for a half a second, I went, "Hey, that sounds just like it's him." You know, where I've been in 1,000 bands where other guys sang that song, and just for that one split second, I kind of rattled my own cage by thinking, "Hey, that sounds just like it's him." You know, that happened. But yeah, I was ready for that gig, as far as ready as anybody else. I mean, there's a billion other guys to do that gig that have studied that music the same way and woodshedded on all the parts and learned all the intros properly and all the endings and all the bits in the middle. I mean, I worked on that stuff and playing in bar bands up in Canada all through my teens and 20s, trying to sound exactly like that was a big goal to me. With any style, I would try and mimic. You know, if I think I'm probably the worst blues player alive, but I love that music, and I try and mimic those sounds and those flavors and the feel and the tension that they can create, and just the vibe of it. Even, you know, if you
Well, you did that in A Minor Thing on the.
Well, I appreciate that, but I mean, that's the goal. I would think every guitar player on the planet has
I was
those
like, this is
goals in mind when they're trying to learn something. Like, I like Jeff Beck. I'll never be able to play like that. But there's a few things everybody can pick up off of there and go, okay, what's he doing different than I do? You know, and you try and you figure that out. And sometimes it's his accent. You know, it's that kind of thing. It's everybody comes from somewhere else, so they have a different accent, and then their playing is the same kind of different accent as they would vocally, you know.
Right. Now, are you still playing every Thursday night at Floyd Country Store?
When I'm in town, I do that thing. Yeah, it's an hour drive from here where I'm at, and do just a little happy hour, a couple hour gig there on Thursdays. So I'm there. Through the summer, I'm gone quite a bit because I'm traveling around a lot, but I'm there probably, you know, well, at least from October to May, pretty much every Thursday.
And I want to point out too that you also have some great stuff on TrueFire. You could take lessons. There's one I'm signing up for. It's called 30 Essential Licks.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
what not to do.
Yeah. So I'm going to sign up for that because I saw that I was on your website. I was like, I got to get the 30 Essential Licks.
Yeah,
I'll actually be invited back to places. So that's something. And I just wanted to touch on, like I said, there's been thousands of interviews out there, and they just talk about the same thing. But we're gonna talk about, I think, the most important thing in the world, and that's a Telecaster. You know, you and I are both Telecaster guys.
Oh yeah.
I know we're going to be preaching to the Telecaster choir out there.
You bet.
And but I don't know. To me, it's like the emotional depth and technical brilliance you can put together best with a Telecaster. And there are certain things like you've played a Telecaster pretty much your whole life, right?
Yeah, I got other guitars and I play them for a night at a time, but I always go back or halfway through the night I go, man, I wish I brought my Telly.
There's a reason why, like when I wrote that book, Telecasters, Stratocasters, a love story, it really was a love story because, I got caught. I don't know if I even write that in the book where I got caught. I had all these guitars in my collection and I closed up my shop and had to bring everything home.
Yeah.
And my wife was watching me march in with all my guitar cases. And she's like, well, the question they always get, well, how many guitars do you have? And the sad thing was I didn't know. I didn't know.
I say it's same as shoes and purses, except these make money.
Yeah. And so, but I did say, but I do know why most of these are Fender instruments. Like I do know why most are Stratocaster and Telecasters.
Yeah.
And that's why I wrote that book was because then I started thinking like, well, why? Why is a guy that's collected and played guitar his whole life and he amasses a huge collection? Why would the vast majority of these
be the
his
same
collection be Telecasters and Stratocasters? Yeah, they're
Sure.
the same, but they're not. But Stratocasters, no two are the same. But Telecasters, they really are families. Like if you get a Blackguard, you got a Blackguard. And you can have 10 Blackguards and they're all going to give you the same joy, and then the white guards change. We're going to talk about that in a little thing, but it's amazing to me to think that in 1950, one man designed something that never needed to be approved upon and it's been 75 years.
Right.
Now.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. You think of everything else that was made back then electrical, especially something electric.
Oh, yeah.
And you contemplate how often that thing is updated, modernized to adapt to the changing times.
Right.
The standard Telecaster that you buy today is basically the same instrument that our cowboy ancestors were playing.
Yeah.
And what is it that makes a Telecaster? Like, what is it magical about this Telecaster? And it's one thing to have a Telecaster, but it's another thing to learn what you can do with this Telecaster. You can't fake it. I think you and I were talking a while back, there's a lot of good Gibson Les Paul players out there, a lot of great Stratocaster players, but can't most guys sound good playing a Les Paul?
I don't know if I would be so bold to say that, but I do believe that I agree with you, and you're right in that a guy that plays super smooth and slick and great and all out on a Les Paul or any kind of handmade glued-in neck guitar, give them a Telecaster and they're fighting with it.
Oh yeah,
because the neck's bowed and it's got a hump starting on the 14th fret, and the bridge is a hollow, clanky sounding thing through any amp, and it's got a bunch of flaws about it. But if you can wrangle those things, I mean, then you like a horse whisperer. You figure out how to whisper that thing and make it work to your advantage.
Right.
Where a Les Paul or a Paul Reed Smith, no offense to those guys, but anybody can play on one, and other than their technique and stuff, they're going to sound the same.
And the same thing, like they're very transparent. A Telecaster is a completely different animal.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something like, you think about, gosh, can you imagine if half the people in America were still driving 1950 Fords because nothing was better?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and to me, that's kind of like where like when I see a guy playing Telecaster anywhere, whether he's in a blues band or country band, I know that guy knows his stuff. Like this guy is brave enough to play this thing there's no facade. Like you can't hide behind pedals and distortion and
they're unforgiving. That's
reverb.
For sure.
Yes, you have to know how to play something that is. It's really the best signal processor there is. Right, just that's what it is. It's a plank with metal strings.
Yeah, and here it is. See what you got. I mean, and if you're gomer enough to go buy one, well, then you're probably just dumb enough to try and figure it out too.
Yeah. So we're not trying to discourage people. Say, well, if you just start now. No, this is where when you are starting out, get that Telecaster and learn to express yourself.
Right.
There's no more emotive guitar than the Telecaster. I mean, you really bear your soul in that thing. And that's the thing. We talk about what's the most important part of this 1950 Telecaster that comes out. And it's really that pickup, right? It's that bridge pickup.
Well, that's the sound, the pickup in that metal pan, and it's hollow underneath there, and that resonance, kind of wonky, mid-rangey squawk that it has. There's nothing else like that on the planet.
Right. And for us that know the history of Leo Fender, he just took a Champ pedal steel, or not a pedal steel,
lap steel pickup,
lap steel, and just turned it sideways. He just took that same bridge. Although now, lap steel, you don't have to have intonation, but for a solid body guitar, you need to have intonation. So he takes this pretty archaic design, and you get this 3-saddle, brass saddle design, which I know that you'll see people that are intonation nuts
Mm-hmm.
and they can't stand these 3 brass saddles. But isn't that like a huge component to
Well, there's nothing sounds like that. You put a 6-saddle bridge on there, that guitar is not going to sound the same. And if you're nuts about the Telecaster, you're not going to like that 6-saddle sound.
right? It's just think of the mass of those brass saddle. It's a softer. That brass had more mass and it sounded darker and warmer, and combined with that bright pickup, it really, really made a difference.
Oh, big time! You bet. It does. Sure does to me.
And the fact that it wasn't novel. Anybody making like I think Bigsby and Rickenbacker, they had string through the back, but you couldn't do that with anything that was archtop or something. String through the back. What a huge
Yeah, you bet.
So you think of this bridge, and in fact, I think the best description of this Telecaster bridge was a David Hunter wrote a book. It was called Tone Manual: Discovering Your Ultimate Electric Guitar Sound. And this is how he describes the magic of this Telecaster bridge. He says, with this type of bridge, the strings are anchored in ferrules, inserted through the back of the guitar's body, from which they pass through drilled holes to emerge to a steel bridge plate before taking a rounded right angle that goes right over the bridge saddles, and then it's toward the neck. The simple configuration achieves excellent sustain, a firm attack, and a bright ringing tone, yielding a sound that is virtually impossible to repeat with any other style of bridge. And he talks about how the fact that bridge is anchored into the mounting bolts.
True.
That's part of the bridge, which is part of the unique sound that you get from this pickup, because you're getting microphonics that are introduced from the vibrating energy into that bridge plate, or into the bridge. So you can't,
exactly.
And how many times you see somebody with a Telecaster body and a Telecaster neck, but he's got the weird bridge on there and he's got the weird pickup in the back. You're like, well, you just defeated the whole purpose of why you're playing that guitar.
Why didn't you buy a Les Paul or an SG?
Yes, I see a lot of the people like that TV Jones kind of thing. To me, it's like, whoa, you kind of, there's something missing.
They got to sell shit too, so.
I think the cool thing about this pickup too, this came right out of the Champion, and it was a 6-pole pickup. It added that third dimension. Everything before that was a direct string pickup, where you basically, once the thing was in steady state, you got the input into the signal. But this thing captured that initial sting. This pickup that Leo Fender comes up with, it captures that initial snap after the string is plucked. And that's where we get that famous twang, right? That's right. And so that's, a lot of other pickups are not going to get you that initial twang. I love it. I think it's, and then.
Oh, me too. The hook's been in forever on me.
So now, so you start out with a 53 Telecaster. Was that your first Telecaster?
No, my first one was a 58 Esquire.
Okay.
That my dad won in a pool game, and brought it home, and I had to pay him, monthly payments for my paper route money.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, I said, well, can I take it to school and show guys? He said, nope. He said, that guitar's not going anywhere till it's paid for. So I had to pay it off before I could take it out of the house. Mm-hmm. Couldn't do anything with it, just sit at home and play on it, And which, at the time pissed me off, of course, as a kid, but I get it now that he was trying to teach me the value of making payments, and it's really not yours until it's paid for.
Right.
Sort of thought process. I get it now, but at 13 years old, I was thinking, nah, you're just being a shit to me for some reason.
Yeah.
But it was a 58 Esquire. And
yep.
Later on, I put a P90 in it, and then later on, I pulled that out and put a Charlie Christian pickup in it. And it's still in there today and still have it.
Now, the earliest, people always talk about blackguards and they talk about white guards. I mean, for a collector or somebody who's going to buy a vintage guitar, a blackguard, that's pretty steep price. A white guard you can get for cheaper.
Yeah.
Sometimes up to $20K, $10K. But there's something, it isn't just the color, the pick guard that changes. Something really happens in this thing. I guess we'll go year by year with this thing. But it's really that first blackguard. It's that flat pole piece pickup, right?
Big time.
Yep. So when you get to the staggered poles, something happens. And I think what it is that when you got the E and A strings, the early Telecasters, because they're the same height, you get a lot of bass content.
Yeah.
Where you don't get that with the later white white guards.
Well, that and the steel saddles that they put on later, I think that made a big difference.
Right.
As
That's
far
right.
as losing some of that
right.
smoky warmth that a blackguard has, you know.
Right. And there are people, because in '58 they do what's called a top loader for maybe a year.
Yeah, the top loader.
And
Yeah.
in the top loader, it wasn't so much that, it was just the fact that it was those steel saddles that really gave you that.
Yeah,
that
that
you
and the
lost a
raised
lot of
pole
that.
pickups too.
Yeah. And that's kind of, to me, it's like, so if you can find a 55 Esquire or Telecaster that still has flat poles, you got yourself a blackguard. You can get a blackguard for a white guard price.
Oh, totally. You
Early
bet.
early '55. Look for them.
Yeah.
Although everybody knows about it now because that secret's out.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
And it's pretty funny, how Leo Fender, he wanted to preserve the modesty of this very ugly looking bridge, right? He sends it out with this bridge cover plate, because nobody was ever supposed to really see what this bridge looked like. 'Cause it's
Right.
pretty scary looking.
Yeah.
But why is it that every Telecaster player will immediately remove that bridge plate?
Yeah.
It became an ashtray, right? They call them ashtrays because that's in the old days.
You bet.
And why is it that a real Telecaster player immediately takes off that bridge plate?
Well, so he can mute the strings with the palm of his hand and get twice the different sounds out of that very same guitar just from the right hand technique alone.
Right. Most of my Telecasters don't even have that bridge plate, because they were long taken off.
Oh yeah, all of mine are in a Legion somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere sitting on a
On a piano beside some draft beer.
yeah, with a bunch of cigarettes.
As literal ashtray beside a draft beer.
Yeah. But it's weird to think that Telecasters were shipped with those bridge covers to 1983.
Oh yeah, why
I
did
don't
they
know.
do that? They could have saved some money.
I don't know. Yeah, they could have. I guess because they really wanted to preserve the modesty of that bridge.
Well, and they do sound a little different with that cover on there. There's some kind of a radiant whatever induction or something like that going on.
Yeah.
With the cover on, but the sad part is you can't mute at all with the cover on.
Right. And that's the case for many, many Fenders. A lot of these guitars, they used to have mutes and stuff.
Yeah.
For some reason, we all prefer to mute with our palm. That's just how we play.
Oh, totally. All of the Jazz Masters, the Jaguar, the Stratocaster, Telecaster, they all had covers on the bridges. The Jags and the Jazz Masters had the little tin cover that covered the saddles.
Right.
Same thing. You couldn't mute with that, so everybody tossed those too.
Now, here's the interesting thing. So the Telecaster comes with two pickups. There's that beautiful high gain thing that's anchored to the bridge plate. And then there's this floating shielded neck pick. And how often do you use that neck pickup?
I use it a hell of a lot, probably more than most people, because I like the sound of some of them. Some are duds, and some are, especially companies that make stuff today, they make them great and they sound wonderful.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that this wasn't just a marketing gimmick. People think, well, one pickup's good, two pickups better, right? So you get to this thinner, focused, floating pickup up there in the neck, but this thing is located what we call the Charlie Christian sweet spot.
Yeah.
Mathematically, there's a node there in the frequency spectrum, and it serves a very, 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 very important thing. For the very first broadcasters, people don't realize that the first broadcasters and Telecasters up to 1952 didn't have tone control.
Right, it was a blend.
It was a blend. And I don't know how many of these people that I know that had blackguards, they automatically changed that blended circuit.
Yeah.
They wanted to have some kind of tone control. They wanted it to ring high or thud low, right?
Yeah.
They wanted to be able to hear that tone change by swinging that little tone knob. But man, boy, did they miss out, right?
Oh, totally. The blend of the two is a beautiful thing.
That blended sound, you got a mellow smoothness that can be superimposed top monstrous, well-defined highs and lows. And that's what it was meant to be,
Yeah. For me to love the neck pickup like I did, I think it was my mother had a Jimmy Bryant and Speedy West 10-inch EP or LP. It wasn't LP, I guess, EP. And it had a bunch of instrumentals on there. And Jimmy Bryant was, as you know, the first Telecaster endorsee guy. And he used the neck pickup, so his switch was in the middle position. And used the neck pickup. And if you listen to any of those recordings, it's the most high fidelity, chimey, jangly, without being like the bridge pickup. It's just beautiful, buttery sound.
Right.
And that's what sold me on the neck pickup, was trying to emulate the Jimmy Bryant sound. Never have, but a lot of it's in the guy's hands and his touch. how you're going to get it, but I think the neck pickup is every bit as good as the bridge pickup on a Telecaster. To me, is just as valuable.
People don't realize that most early Telecasters had what was called this deep rhythm capacitor.
Yeah.
That is stuck in. So the front, if you had that three-way switch and it was at the front, what you were doing is you were engaging this deep rhythm capacitor. So when people talk about how genius Leo Fender was, this kind of was like, this was his only dud in the early days.
Right.
And that was done because for 1951, there really wasn't a P bass. If you were playing in a band and you had the upright slap bass, that deep rhythm was to help kind of
fatten
that bottom up a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, nobody in their right mind today plays with that.
No.
And I'm sad if people clip those out. If you have a Telecaster that's a real Blackguard, don't clip out.
Yeah, I would leave that and do like the guys did on the Stratocaster. There's an in-between position between the bridge position and the middle.
Right.
And that is the neck and bridge pickup together.
Right. People don't realize that you had to wait all the way to 1967 before they actually got wired in a way that you could actually play both pickups together.
Oh, yeah.
But that's the thing, too. But by 53, once they get rid of that blended circuit, you do have tone control.
Oh, yeah.
One thing about that front pickup, it came with a chrome-plated brass cover, and that was done to cut out the high frequencies, overtones.
Right.
For some reason, Leo wants this thing to sound like a Super 400, right?
Right.
It's not going to. I understand you don't like chrome-plated brass. You prefer the nickel, right?
Yeah, if I'm putting something together or building myself a guitar or somebody's building one for me of today's stuff that are partially used, I like the nickel silver covers. I just think they sound better and they're not as hard sounding as the brass with chrome.
And do you think it's because more high frequencies are not being cut?
I just think that the brass on the neck pickup on the cover makes it sound kind of brassy and not as pleasing sound in the high mids to me.
And real quick, people say, "Oh, an Esquire is just like a Telecaster without the front pickup," but that's not true, is it?
Not at all.
And why is that?
Well, when you flip it all the way to the back that you would on a Telecaster just for the bridge pickup, you have no tone control, and that's a whole nother crazy wild animal if you're playing loud,
right?
To control.
Yep, it's almost like the Stratocaster in the back.
Yeah,
there's no filtering whatsoever. You're going jack to amp.
Yeah, exactly. That makes them sound totally different than any Telecaster on the same position.
Right. And they always say, "Well, it's a hotter pickup." Not necessarily.
No.
I think
No, it's the same. It's the same pickup.
Yeah.
It's just nothing in the way of it.
Yep. And there's no electro brake in the front in the Charlie Christian spot that would impede. You'll get more sustain that way as well.
Totally.
But I tell people that Esquire is not a Telecaster. It is. You got to have one in your arsenal.
Yeah, it's like having the wildest Les Paul Jr. you ever had.
Yep. And now the neck. You have a Telecaster. You got the right bridge pickup. Everything's cool. You don't really monkey around with that front too much. You can, though.
Yeah.
You're not going to affect your tone. The Telecaster neck is a 25.5-inch scale. Holy cow. I'm sorry, Gibson people. You're short scale, man. You're not getting an open E string or an open A bang the way you're going to get from something that's under that much tension.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's such a slow, we call it a firm low end snap.
Yeah.
You can't do that with your Gibson.
It's like a mandolin.
Yeah. Holy cow.
Yeah.
And I even say in my book that you can't play that Jimi Hendrix chord right without a Stratocaster or a Telecaster.
Yeah.
Because the scale is wrong.
That's right.
And the fact that you got a glued in neck. That glued in neck makes a difference because you're basically forcing it to resonate as one, whereas that Telecaster or Stratocaster, you're resonating at two separate frequencies. And it's just for something that you're getting more of a pop, new snap. And the curvature of that neck, too. 7.25-inch radius.
Yeah.
That really makes for some great playing, doesn't it?
For me, I love them. I think they're wonderful. A lot of guys can't play them because they're too round, not flat enough for them.
Right. They want that 12-inch Lester.
Yeah. They're used to, that's what a guy gets used to,
Yeah. But to me, that 7.25-inch radius is everything. That gives you a lot of what you're doing magically with that Telecaster, and the fact that it's a maple neck. This is the stuff they made bowling pins out of, right? That hard rock maple.
Exactly.
Of course, Leo thought, well, I don't need a truss rod. This thing is so solid. Well, you do kind of need a truss rod.
Oh, some of the warp, sure, definitely.
Yeah, they do warp. We talk about that neck as a huge component. In the old days, all the guitars, they basically spoke to you with their headstock, right? The fancier the headstock, the fancier the guitar was, right?
Right. Yeah.
Leo Fender, this is a working man's guitar, string through pulling, no bending anywhere. These things stay in tune, right?
Well, yeah, they're bulletproof.
Yep. Bulletproof. You could drop that thing, it's in tune. And when they come up with the Stratocaster, that straight string pull is going to make a huge difference with that inertia block
Totally.
tremolo system.
Yeah, you bet.
But that's the thing. I see people sometimes screw around with these necks, and you're like, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
No. But also that swamp ash body. That's a serendipitous thing, right? Leo Fender, he basically looked for source wood and just happened to get some old growth swamp ash in the late 40s, early 50s. That's that stuff that came from south, not the stuff in Vermont,
Right.
that you make furniture out of.
Yeah.
This was that real old growth swamp ash. It was air dried, right? Because it sat in the back. It was, where they kept all that wood like they always did.
Yeah.
You can't replicate that, I heard somewhere that, people, they try to experiment with different bodies for their Telecasters, but it's not going to help you. It's not going to make it.
No, it's never the same. I mean, I've got a mahogany body Tele that I put together, and it sounds great. Then I'll pick up my 53 and go, oh, maybe it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The same older bodies, same thing. It's got a little more mid-range to it, but it doesn't have the spank and the gnarliness that the ash does.
Right. And that the thing is, like, I think the Alder worked great for the Stratocaster. For some reason, that was a serendipitous thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of the low power pickups. I do like ash body Stratocasters. I don't like any other kind of body for a Telecaster other than the ash. I've never played one that I liked.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And also that neck, before we go back to it, like you have a 53 Telecaster. That 53s were kind of like the most sought after. And that was because by that era, they were like baseball bats, weren't they?
Pretty much. I mean, they're not huge like a lot of guys get today, get them made. But of all of the early blackguards, yeah, I'd say 53. Some 52s were the biggest of the batch,
Yeah. And that's the thing too. I think whenever anybody asks us, the Telecaster people, like, what's the best sounding Telecaster? And you always say, well, the fatter the neck, the lighter the ash body,
you got it,
better.
You bet.
And that's why when you have them made for you and whatnot, that's what you tell
them. That's what you shoot
light
for.
Ash
you
body.
bet.
Yep. And I'm not saying that you're going to find a bad 51 Telecaster out there that has a thinner neck. It's still going to be great, but it's just for us who love and play a lot of blackguards, the fatter that neck, the happier we're going to be. I don't know. It's just, to me, that just always made a huge, huge difference.
Oh, totally. And I mean, myself, I've owned several I've had a broadcaster and a couple of no-casters, 52, couple of 54s, and I've been lucky in my life. I've owned 6 53s in my lifetime, but most of that stuff wound up being divorce casters. So I had to sell them one way or another, So I got one good one now, and I got a good wife, so I'm set.
You're set. I tell people, and I've told people, and I've said it before, you really do need a lot of Stratocasters because no two are alike.
Mm-hmm.
You really only need a blackguard, and it doesn't have to be a 1953 Fender-made blackguard. It just has to be the blackguard specs.
Totally, you bet.
Has to have the flat poles. I mean, the stuff that Nacho makes, as far as people making replicas.
I think that's the best of those type of guitars made out there today by far.
And he sticks to that formula. It's going to be a fat neck. It's going to be a light ash body, and it's not going to monkey around with any of the electronics, not monkey around with any of the bridge plate or any of that.
200% stock, you bet.
Yep. Well, let's go year by year. 1950. This is where everything gets going. About 200 broadcasters are shipped in 1950. People thumb their noses at these things, right? Gibson laughed. These guys at the NAMM show.
Oh, sure, back then.
They called it the electric canoe panel, the toilet seat. They called it all kinds of things. But the Les Paul people weren't laughing for long, were they?
No, not at all.
Because they sell 1,000 of these electric Spanish guitars.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, so then Gibson kind of counteracts with their Les Paul model. They rush to the market before it's really ready. And Gretsch does the same thing with their Duo J.
Yeah.
Leo Fender hit a home run, like at his first at-bat, boom.
You bet.
And we always say, well, any improvement he made later devalues this thing, whereas any improvement made to the Les Paul increases the value as we go through the 50s.
Yeah.
But that's not true. Leo Fender hit this home run at the first at-bat.
Yeah, exactly.
The Gibson guys, they tried to bunt for a single, and they made it to first on an error.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So 51, we get the weird, funny thing happens where, the Gretsch people sue them
Right.
or threaten to sue them. And it's kind of funny when you think about today, a broadcaster made by Gretsch is about 10 times less than a broadcaster made by Fender in 1950, just so you know.
Yeah.
So Fender did win that
Yeah.
one.
Big time.
But they call these no-casters. I know people that don't like it to be called a no-caster, but it's a clipped label, and that's kind of a thing. They changed the name in 1951 to officially to the Telecaster, and that's kind of like where we all start. Most of us, when we start collecting our Telecasters, are going to start looking there because the values of the no-casters and the broadcasters are actually so high now that I don't think you could enjoy playing it
Yeah.
out.
Exactly. I agree.
You might not even want to look at it. You put it up on the wall and turn the lights out.
Yeah. Look at how rich I am.
Yeah. And unfortunately, like most of the broadcasters I've seen, some of the no-casters, they didn't perfect, the clear coat yet.
Right.
So they're all alligator. It's really hard to find one that doesn't alligator severely.
Right.
So every time you do play it, you leave yellow
All over your shirt.
nitrocellulose all over your shirt. Yeah. So, but by 51, they got it. They figure out this clear coat. So another thing too is that the bridge plate, I think they go from zinc to copper because of the Korean War. They couldn't get zinc anymore. It was too expensive.
Mhm.
So, and here's the thing is that a good Telecaster person can tell you the exact date that a Telecaster is made by how many flathead screws and how many Phillips head screws are in it,
That's right.
right?
Yeah. As weird as that
Right.
sounds, there's a whole bunch of believers.
So
that's
you'll
for
have
sure.
people that don't have to take the neck off. You just look and count the Phillips head screws. You look at the flathead screws.
Yeah.
Because Leo was trying to phase them out by 52. My 52 was made in April. It's all flathead.
Right.
But by the summer, they're all Phillips head. 52, all screws had Phillips heads. And then they start rounding that chrome-plated brass control knob. It gets the round-headed top.
Right. And shorter.
So,
Yeah.
I think they made everything in-house except for the strings, the tuners, and I think everything else was made either in-house or across the alley.
Yeah. That was that Randolph Rice
Yeah.
that did the metal work.
Yeah. They basically got the strings they got from Viceroy or whatever, and the tuners they got from Clusen, but everything else was made in-house.
Mhm.
So they kind of round them off. Also, the jack cup now is pressed instead of milled.
Yeah.
And then for some reason, they phase out that blended circuit. They now give you tone control. I don't know if that was just people just were upset that they had a tone control that they couldn't control tone with. They didn't get the whole blended circuit.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if it was a couple of the guys that came through there regular that were trying out guitars all the time that went, hey, what if you try something like this?
Yeah.
And they went, okay, let's try that. And then they went, oh, yeah.
Mhm.
And all it takes is a few people to do that,
Yeah.
and that changes it,
Mhm. Yeah. Somebody will say, let's do this and let's do that. And
Yeah.
then you get the Stratocaster.
Exactly.
But that's a whole different story. Another thing, too, is the thermometer case is switched to this poodle case.
Mhm.
And, that poodle case is so rare.
Oh, man.
There are a lot of thermometer cases because they made, for 4 or 5 years, they had the thermometer case.
Yeah.
But that poodle case was only used for 1 year.
Yeah.
And somebody told me that you can't put a Stratocaster in a Telecaster poodle case, but I
I
don't know.
think if you lay it upside down in there, it'll go in.
Yeah, I've been able to fit my Stratocaster into my poodle case,
Yeah.
but I was told that don't buy one not knowing if it's a Strat or a Telecaster
Right.
because the Telecaster was a little different. And my own experience is that I was able to get my Stratocaster in that poodle case.
Yeah.
That's one of those things that, I say in my book, my 57 Strat fits in it, so I don't know if that's true or not.
Mhm.
Maybe I have the wrong poodle case.
Maybe.
Maybe I don't
You
know.
got the rarest
Maybe I've
one.
gone through life a fool, not knowing. So, and then in 53, the outer brass saddles get flattened near the edges. Did you mention that you prefer that flattening near the edges?
Well, just in setting them up, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're putting those saddles on different kinds of guitars, then sometimes you need them, sometimes you don't, depending on how deep the neck box is.
Right. And then we mentioned in 53, the Nacho Banos calls these things baseball bats.
Yeah.
And then they changed tooling. They actually, the 12 fret dots are now moved farther apart.
Right.
So
yeah.
the fakers out there, they don't do that. I think the most important thing, 53, Freddie Tavares arrives.
Yeah.
And he's going to be huge when it comes to the amps and the Stratocaster. And a lot of stuff happens at South Raymond Avenue, Fullerton shop. Big things are about to happen.
Well, what would it have been like to live back then?
Yeah.
Huh?
The 3 buildings, that were there, now they're moving. Don Randall, he's basically jettisoned that Radiotel distribution agreement.
Yeah.
And now he's got the shop down the street. You got a lot of stuff going on. Rickenbacker, FC Hall goes and does his own thing. So I think Forrest White shows up in 54. Now things get really busy at South Raymond Avenue. Now they put into inventory controls into place. And this is when you get the goofy serial number plates start going all over the place,
Right, all over the place.
And we don't know why. I think unofficially we know why.
Right.
They were selling guitars out the back door. They make payroll. So, things like that. But it's also just make it look like he's made much more than he has, that they start throwing really high numbers on there.
Yeah, that's true.
So very interesting. 55, now we get that white layer ABS styrene pickguard, and this becomes known as the white guard. So, we also know that the bridge pickup at that time also changes from the flat to the staggered head pieces.
Right.
So, in your opinion, what do you think is the most drastic change between those flat poles and the compensated poles?
Well, you need in the sound of them.
Yeah.
To my way of thinking or hearing, I guess, is I think of the black guards as a little smokier, bluesier sounding, even on the bridge pickup,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to the white guards are a little more snappier, twangier. I'd say musically, I would say it's more Buck Owensy sounding
Right.
than Jimmy Bryant.
Right. And the thing is, too, like the thing that changes also, they change from brass saddles to the 1/4-inch steel smooth saddles.
Yeah.
That really makes that white guard sound more affected by the bridge changing.
More than the pickup, even, I think, myself.
Yeah. Yeah. The cool thing, too, about the Telecaster body is now has a more whitish look to it. The older stuff turned butterscotch.
Right.
But I think it's because the clear coat starting in 55 did not yellow as much as the older stuff did.
Maybe a different
Yeah.
chemical combination.
Right. So that's kind of like the white guard. A lot of times people will take a white guard and they'll put a black guard on it trying to push it off.
Right.
It doesn't work because the body's too white. It's too light.
Yeah.
It didn't turn butterscotch. And then there's some other changes that take place. In 56, they add that butterfly clip. So I think the biggest difference is they add that butterfly clip in 1956. They take away that button, the round tree.
Round one, yeah.
And do you feel that changes the tone at all?
I'd like to think it does because the round one is a heavier weight of material than the little butterfly one. So to me it would, but yeah, probably not. I think we're just being gomers at that point.
Yeah, and I think the butterfly was going to hold it down because remember that the strings are evolving as these guitars are evolving, and people are starting to use lighter and lighter strings, and I think that
Right.
it gave you more tension with those middle strings.
Well, with the little wing wrapping over each string, they never popped out. Like once in a while, the B string will pop out on your 52
Mm-hmm.
if you're bending behind the nut or doing any kind of pyrotechnics
Yeah.
with it. It's going to jump out of there quicker than it would with the butterfly one.
Right. To me, it's like it looked cooler if it had the round string tree on it.
Totally.
Because that could be a 55 or 56.
Right.
Maybe it's a 54.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So to me, I don't think it changes your tone too much other than anything you do up the neck and back of the neck. But here in 56, V-necks start showing up.
Right.
They start carving these things a little deeper. But do you find a lot of V-necks, steep V-necks on Telecasters, or is that mostly a Stratocaster thing?
I think for me, out of all the tellies I've picked up, at guitar shows and all of that 56 and 7 are the most V-necks on Telecasters that I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And like 55 is a big round boat neck usually, which is a nice big fat neck, and then of course 58 they're flat.
Right. You would much rather have a big round boat neck than you would a V-neck, right?
Myself, I would, because the shoulders feel like they're fuller by being, not shaved into the V shape. So the neck actually feels bigger than it would, even though it was a big V,
Mm-hmm. I know for Stratocasters, I have a 57 that's got a really sharp V. I don't play it a lot because my hand gets tired.
Yeah.
No bar chords on that guitar. You're playing the cowboy chords,
Yeah.
You're not going up and down the neck with that thing. I think that I mentioned earlier that the fatter the neck, the rounder the neck, the more you're going to be happy and get more of a telly feel for it.
Totally. I agree with that.
Now, in 58, stuff starts really changing. Telecaster saddles are now cut from a threaded stock, which this totally reduces the mass of the saddle.
Right.
People always say, well, it's because they were doing the top loaders. I think you're getting more of this.
Mm-mm.
You're getting more of this undesirable Telecaster feel from the fact that it's a threaded steel bridge. Combine that with a top loader, it's not going to be the same sound.
Oh, totally. I mean, that for me, when I got my 58 Esquire, it was great. I was happy with it, but I didn't know anything about any of that. But by the early 70s, I was aware of the brass saddle differences. So I'd found a set of brass saddles in a music store in their parts bin, and they've been in that Esquire ever since. I still have the threaded bolt ones, but boy, that thing just woke up when I put the brass saddles in it on that Esquire. So it was just like, wow, what a difference. And I saw it then, as a teenager.
Now, did you ever play a lot of top loaders? Did you ever try a top loader?
No, I maybe played a half a dozen of them. And they're okay. There's nothing wrong with them at all.
Like you didn't know that didn't feel different?
Well, it feels like it's maybe is a little, like the strings might be a gauge lighter.
Yeah.
Like from an 11 to a 10, they feel like that kind of thing. but I don't think I really noticed any, if they're new strings, I didn't notice any sustain difference or lack of or any of that on those.
Yeah. Fender actually heard the cries of the masses because both the P bass and the Telecaster did away with the
Right.
back loading.
Yeah.
The P bass never got it back. The Telecaster did.
No. Yeah, not until they did the Telecaster bass.
Right. So to me, it's like that must have been such a huge component to that Telecaster feel and sound that enough people complained.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I'm sure back then it was a big thing. I would think that if it was a top loader with the little bolt saddles, that's going to be a huge difference compared to any Blackguard.
Right.
World of difference.
Yep, absolutely. I think if you collect a lot of Telecasters, it might be fun to have a 58 that's got a top loader because there are people that make them sound incredible.
A little different.
To me, it's a different Telecaster sound. It's for Telecaster feel.
Totally. What's Jim Campolongo?
Exactly.
He's got a 59 top loader, and that sounds real unique, mind you. That's his playing too.
He can make it sound better than most people can make, a Blackguard sound.
Yeah.
59, we also get this custom Telecaster shows up. They wanted to pretty it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you play custom Telecasters?
I've got a couple of newer ones that I've, put together, had guys make for me. I just think they look smart, like a tuxedo.
Yeah, they're prettier looking. Might be older, a little bit different feel. Binding is really kind of cool. I don't know. It's a dressier thing. Yeah, if you're going to wear a tie to a gig.
Yeah, I had a 63 custom for a long time, and man, I think it was alder body, and that guitar sounded like a piano.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I sold it, but divorced. But great guitar, fantastic sounding guitar, lightweight like crazy, and a 63. I think it had a really fat for 63 neck on it.
Mm-hmm. 63 necks are good. People like the 63 necks.
Yeah.
They like the 53 necks. They like the 63 necks. I don't know. There's something about a green guard that I've always loved.
Yeah.
And I'm confused.
Yeah, I've got a 63 Strat, and it's got a pretty good sized neck on it too.
Mm-hmm.
And that thing, about 2 months ago, I A-B'd it. I have a 55 maple neck, and then a buddy of mine has a 56 hardtail. And we A-B'd all three of them, and hands down, the 63 won everything in every way.
Did we call green guards back in the old days?
No, I don't think so.
That's a new term. Maybe because they didn't turn green yet.
I thought they were blue.
Yeah, or mint. They called them mint.
I thought they had a little bit of a blue hue to
I
them.
remember, when I started hearing people talk about green guards, I was like, what are you talking about?
Too.
You mean that shiny thing that shrinks?
Yeah.
That's a green guard?
Yeah.
I don't know if we called them green guards back in the old days. I don't know. I can't remember that.
I don't remember it, not at all.
Yeah. So, but I think those are beautiful, but the regular Telecaster, now has 8 pickguard screws instead of the 5 because you know how people don't like that big hump that kind of grows that grows at the bridge.
It grows on the white guard big time.
I know people that take off their white guards and put them between books trying to get them back,
Right. I had on my 58 Esquire, I guess I was probably 20. I was embarrassed by that little hump.
Yeah.
And that it came up, and I got a piece of carpet tape that was sticky on both sides and put it under the guard and on the guitar. That way it held it down and it looked flat.
Yeah, I have that 55 Esquire. It's got that big gump. I bought another pickguard to put on it, but the pickguard screws didn't line up, so I put the old one back on, and it's okay. That's how it is.
Yeah, that's how it is. Just leave it.
The electronics circuit in the Telecaster changes a little bit. We add that white chiclet paper tone capacitor now. It replaces the other cap.
Right.
And, if you're going to be a purist, you got to know about it.
Oh, yeah, you bet.
And 59, you got the Raymond Street factory now goes to 7 buildings. Things are happening at Fender.
Yeah.
The workforce is doubled. And now everything is now being shipped in those brown Tolex cases with the burnt orange lining.
Right. Knuckle busters.
Yep. So 1960, Telecasters thankfully revert back to the original bridge design. They go back to the strings through the back. Blonde Telecaster finishes are now more opaque and yellower than ever.
Mm-hmm.
I love that look, that olive gray shade. I like that. I love that look.
Yeah, you bet.
The brown Tolex amp begins. So if you got a 1960 Strat or Telecaster, it does sound best in those brown amps.
Yeah. It's true.
Well, because that's how they were designed. They were designed, the Blackguard stuff sounds great in tweed. The 60 stuff sounds best in the brown. And when you get to the 63, 64, they start doing the potting differences. The Blackguard stuff, it's the black face stuff that makes.
Yeah.
61 now, things are starting to change. The D-necks are getting a little bit fatter. They get really thin. 1960, you're really talking about a thin neck.
Really
thin neck.
Yeah.
And then the white chiclet paper tone capacitors changed to that round disc capacitor, and that kind of changes. Now you start adding the patent numbers to the Telecaster peg head. and as well as a DES number. So things are happening, right?
Right.
Things are happening. Well, another thing too is you get what we call the slab boards on there too, right? 560.
Yeah, the rosewood.
I don't know. To me, I think that the slab board stuff, I like playing it. I like the thin neck with the slab board, really do. I think with the Telecaster though, it's not as good as it is with the Stratocaster because you are losing tone difference that comes from that thinner neck. We're purists.
Oh, totally.
We're
You
purists. We
bet.
want the fat neck. But that slab it's hard. It's really hard to find Telecasters with slab necks. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah. There's very few
Very
of
few of
them,
them
it
out
seems
there.
like.
Of course, 1963, now we get the veneer necks. And now this is where a lot of the vintage stuff comes in. People are looking for 63s, which you're not going to find. My birth year is 1963.
Mhm.
It took me, I don't know, 50 years to find a 63 regular blonde Telecaster.
Yeah.
Because think about it. You go into the store, you got that Telecaster Custom for $30 more, right? It's
Yeah.
30 or $40 more. Are you going to pick that or boring blonde? No, you're going to buy the much fancier Telecaster for $40 more or whatever.
Oh, sure. Custom colors.
Yeah, and so I think according to my friend Gil Southworth, I think he told me they made like 3 times as many customs by then than they did the regular blondes because nobody was buying those blondes.
Oh, wow.
It's a huge difference. That's why it took me so long to find a 63 blonde.
Yeah.
You're gonna pay what you pay for a custom. That's just how it is.
Oh, sure. Now, yeah. Hard to find. That's why.
Yep. And so we get through 64. The clay dots come. People start talking about what they call clay dots. Changed to perloid.
Mhm.
The clay dots were nothing more than floor tiles, right? That they punched out the dots.
Yeah. Linoleum.
But we call them clay dots and the perloid. And by 1965, of course, everything has changed now. CBS runs everything. And the only thing I think that's great about this CBS era is that you get maple caps from that era.
Yeah, boy.
And I don't know. I'm a big advocate. I know Zach Childs is a big advocate. A lot of people I know tell you if you can find these maple caps mid 60s Telecasters, they're about as fun to play and sound great as the old white guards are.
I totally agree with that. I tell everybody that I get into it with, I say the same thing. I've never played a bad 66 or 7 maple cap.
Yep.
Any. And I've set up hundreds of them for guys and, tweaked on them, little setup things and played lots and lots and lots of them. And I've never picked up a bad one that wasn't lightweight they're kind of small necks, but they're maple caps,
Right.
so they sound great.
I mean, you almost feel like it's more rigid, like it's just a stronger. I even joke that if you're going to get in a bar fight, you'd want to hit somebody with a Telecaster that had a maple. Like all those movies where the guys rush the Palomino stage, the guy takes the Telecaster and starts beating them.
Right.
You want a maple cap for that. It'd last. It would give you more impact.
Get 3 fights out of that.
Yeah. And then you wouldn't have to tune it. It still stays in tune.
Yeah, exactly. Because it still had Bluesons on it.
You get some goofy stuff like in the late 60s, you get that smuggler's body. I know people pay more for these smuggler's bodies, but isn't that just because the dang ash is so heavy?
Yeah.
Still not going to sound better.
No, not at all. It's novel.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever played a smuggler that did sound good?
No, not that sounded great.
Yeah.
It sounded okay, but I haven't played one that was great.
Mm-hmm. By 67, we get the thin lines. Do you play with the thin lines? Have you ever played with the thin lines?
I've had a couple of them. I sold one. I wish I'd never sold it. It was a really pale mauve color,
Mm-hmm.
like a really light pastel purple, a 68 that I bought up in Canada. And it was one of those that kind of like the Paisley thing was. I bought it in 70, I guess it would have been 72 or 3, and it was a 68. And it was a little tiny town that the guy had guitars and amps and strings and straps and stuff and taught guitar. Mm-hmm. And the other half of the store was his wife's quilts and sewing stuff and washers and dryers. So it was a little tiny town. And that guitar had hung there since it was new. So they know, and it was a farm town, so nobody was going to buy a light, mm-hmm. kind of pinky purple Telecaster. Sure. So I went in there and saw it. I was like, wow, that thing's brand new. And I got it for $150 back then. And I should have just put it away.
Yeah.
I waited about 10 years and made real good money on it, but I never did play it. Because to me, the D string and the G string on those things just They don't ring
Right.
to me.
I heard that people say that it's hit or miss with the thin lines, whereas traditional Telecasters, it's a hit all the time.
Right.
It's rare you get a miss with a real Telecaster.
I agree.
And just to finish out the '60s, the cool thing is when CBS buys and you get hee-haw, right?
Yeah.
So now people want to play. Telecasters are now celebrated, and the logo is this huge black logo because everybody wants to see it on color TV. They want you to know it's a Fender Telecaster.
Right.
Or a Fender, right?
Yeah.
But to me, it's funny because, when you think about Telecasters being custom colored, it's not really a thing. And
No.
when you get to the hee-haw and you get to the Buck Owens and stuff like that, once they get the color TV, everybody wants the
red, white, and blue. Yeah.
Most people are playing Jaguars if they're flashy. They're the Conrad Birdie.
Yeah.
They're not playing a Telecaster.
Yeah.
But I don't know. And then, of course, toward the '68, it changed from the nitrocellulose to the polyurethane. And I don't know. Do you think that really affects the Telecaster tone?
Yeah, I think it's like a wet blanket on a piece of
Absolutely.
wood.
So it's like the same with the Telecasters and the Stratocasters.
Oh yeah,
Us people that we call vintage, I think we stopped calling it vintage once you change to a polyurethane finish.
I agree.
That's how we are. So let's sum it up here. We'll tell people you want to be a Telecaster player. You got your work cut out for you, buddies. You're gonna have to work. You're gonna have to earn that title being a Telecaster player.
right.
But boy, the rewards, right? You know how you get like the Blues Mondays and you show up and you know that when there's a guy standing there, he's gonna play this, he's gonna play that. And you only get 12 bars to solo in.
Right.
You can really blow people's minds with a Telecaster.
Oh, definitely. You bet. It's a great weapon.
Basically, you're shooting with a 44 Magnum, whereas everybody else is out there shooting with Derringers, right?
That's right.
You play
got a
those 7
22.
notes or whatever it is. You play that 12 bars. It's emotional, right? You can say more and do more with fewer notes with a Telecaster.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, the flashier you are, the less I think that Telecaster comes through. The more emotional you are, the more pain you take in what you're doing. I think that the Telecaster is your reward. It just gets you.
Yeah.
You can bear your soul.
It gives it back. You bet.
And then the one thing we're telling everybody, yes, a Blackguard is a must, but that doesn't mean you have to go and buy $80,000 Blackguard.
No. You can put one together or buy a
nachos, or even the Fender custom
one
shop
that's
stuff.
that good.
As long as they got the flat poles and the brass saddles and make sure they get a fat neck and a light ash body, you got it, right?
That's pretty much it right there. Yeah.
Your ears and your fingers aren't going to really be able to tell.
And thin paint.
Yep. And then, the White Guard, I don't know, it's more of a Buck Owens sound, right?
Yeah.
It's just a little more energy there, but it's a totally unique era piece.
You bet. It's a great sound as well.
If you can find a slab board Telecaster, it's hard to find sound in Telecaster.
Yeah.
Most people preferred a little bit later, like 63, 64s.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
Only because the necks are a little fatter.
Yeah.
And you get back to, you get in a way. I think, I don't know when they do away with the threaded. When do they get 67? I think they get rid of the threaded back to a barrel.
67s are the last where they're using the bigger threaded bolts.
It's okay. But if you're having a Telecaster made for you,
go brass. You bet.
Brass saddles. Ask for the thick, big necks. You can buy Telecasters all the way through the 60s. They're all going to be great. And you might find them microphonic because they stopped, for some reason in 1969, they don't really pot those bridge pickups anymore. They're screechy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're screechy, but that's just kind of because it's mass production. They don't care.
Yeah. But you can fix that yourself,
Yeah, you can fix that.
Dipping them in wax, and if you don't leave them too long, it won't kill it completely. Just get it if you know how to do it, or somebody that knows how to do it, just to get it till you got about 4 bubbles popping up less a minute. Then it's done.
So what we're trying to tell you is that Fender Telecasters, but everybody makes Telecasters. Everybody makes great Telecasters as long as you keep to the things that make that Telecaster special. And we've talked about that. You can have the guy down the street make you this Telecaster.
Yeah.
Or you can make it yourself. So, in fact, it's not that hard.
Well, I think the technology is out there that is so good, and pickup makers are so good that a guy could build one himself and easily hit the 100% mark.
I noticed you were. What were you playing? You had a special Telecaster made for you. I saw at the last Dallas show. You were playing. Who made that Telecaster for you?
It's called a Neville.
Neville, that's right.
It's Jeff Neville. They live up in Hermansville, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And he made me a one-piece swamp ash from a 300-year-old log that was in Lake Marion.
Wow.
For 300 years, so who knows how old the log was. So he made me a one-piece ash body, and I requested I wanted it's a white pickled kind of finish, not a blonde, but it's more It actually has a little bit of a blue hue to it. Maybe it's because the wood is so old, or the color of the wood and the way he painted it to come out that way. But I said, I want cartoon binding on it. I want the binding on the top and the back to be as wide as it is on the sides.
Mm-hmm.
So he said it was a bit of a job to get it that big, but it's got really big black binding around the top and the back. And you see it a lot bigger on the front. If you're looking at the guitar from the front, you can see the binding like crazy, whereas on an old custom Telecaster, you never tell if it's bound until the guy turns sideways. Hits all those marks though, like you said, the bridge and the ash body and a big fat neck and flat pole piece bridge pickup, and just got brass saddles and got all those things, and man, it's just turned out fantastic.
I enjoyed meeting you. First time I met you in Dallas this year, and we took a picture together, and I sent it to Barney, and then he sent it back to both of us saying, "Let me introduce you guys."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, thank you for that.
And so I appreciate this. Like I said, even though I'm the most loyal Telecaster guy in the world, this is my third season, and I did not want to do the podcast about Telecasters. I wanted to do it with you, so this is why we're in season 3, and you're the Titan of the Telecaster.
Thank you.
And I advise everybody to go, especially the stuff you won the Grammy. I didn't even talk about this for the work you did on
with the Brad
cluster
Paisley
pluck.
Yeah.
Holy
pluck.
cow! I listened to that. James Burton, Vince Gill, everybody takes a solo on there, and man, I was just like, whoa. I love that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
And you got a Grammy. That's something else.
Yeah, pretty lucky.
And didn't even talk. Could you imagine? You do all these interviews, and that's probably the first thing people talk to you about, or Merle Haggard. But
yeah, one of the two.
but I want to just talk Telecasters with you because, I tell people that watch
awesome. I love them.
watch the Zach Childs interview. I think it was for True Tone.
Yeah,
it's an hour and a half, and you guys talk about all your musical legacy, all the things you did, where you grew up, how you did it, how you got Don Kelly taught you this and that.
Yeah.
I didn't want to really repeat all that. I wanted to talk about what a Telecaster means to you.
Yeah.
And I think we achieved that. And anybody out there, remember, check out Red's stuff. He's on True Fire. I mean, like I said, I'm doing the 30 licks, and I saw that you can actually sign up for one-on-one. Is that true?
On that, I don't think it's on that, but I do teach at home.
Yeah, I saw on your website you can take one-on-one lessons.
And I used to do it on Skype, but they folded up, so now I do it on a thing called Google Meets. But they can email me and we can set up a lesson or whatever. And I do it. I
perfect.
Pretty much when I'm home, I do Mondays and Tuesdays regular, and got quite a bit of students from all over the world, actually.
Yeah, and if maybe I'll call you up and try to weasel into one of those.
You bet.
And I'll say, hey, show me how you. Yeah, this is no. To me, it's like I was thrilled to do this, and I don't know who quote. I want to read a quote, and this is somebody I don't know who said this. Maybe you can tell me who said this. One of the coolest things about Redd Volkaert is his ability to seamlessly blend genres on his Telecaster, creating a sound that's instantly recognizable yet impossible to pin down. He was once described his style as being drunk on a tightrope. Perfectly capturing the knack and balancing precision and wild expressive flair. I don't know who said that. I couldn't find out who said that.
I don't know.
But I found that as a full quote.
I guess that's one way of looking at it.
Yeah, so somebody said that you're like a drunk on a tightrope.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Like you've seen that guy in the bar walking through the bar and he trips and falls and he still never spills a drop.
Yep. So anyways, I enjoyed this. I thank you. I can't thank you enough. And I think that people, people that don't know about Telecasters, I bet they're out there right now thinking about getting their Telecaster, and they know exactly what to get. And
exactly. If they listen to this, they'll sure get all the ideas.
Yep. They're going to dedicate their lives to becoming a true Telecaster man.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ram. I sure appreciate it.
Okay, Red. Thank you again.
Oh, my pleasure.
And we'll be in touch. I think I'm going to hit you up for some of those lessons when you're in town.
All right. Yeah, just give me a buzz.
I will. So thank you again.
All right. Well, have a good day. Thank you.
Hey, I just wanted to remind you guys also, it hasn't got out on Audible yet, but Shane Matsumoto and me put together an audiobook version of Naked and Dime where you can hear the amps. And we want to do that just because nobody has CD players anymore. So you can actually listen to the thing on Audible, and every amp that we use on there, we want you to try that. We don't know when it's going to hit the Audible bookshelves, but look for it. Look for it. It's coming soon. Thank you. Thank you for listening to Buy That Guitar, presented by Vintage Guitar Magazine. Please support VG for all they do for guitar players like us. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment on this podcast. I'd love to hear from you at ram@vintageguitar.com. See you again next week. Bye-bye.
The official Vintage Guitar Magazine 2025 price guide has partnered with 33 of the top guitar dealers in the industry to provide the most accurate values for thousands of models. This includes electric guitars, acoustic guitars, basses, amplifiers, effects, mandolins, and banjos. Whether your instrument is an investment or simply a piece you enjoy playing, it's always helpful to know what it's worth. If you're checking out a guitar at your local shop and want to know its value before making the purchase, this guide is your go-to source for all the details. Available in both print and digital editions, you can have the guide right at your fingertips no matter where you go.